I want to talk about the darker side of being a creative online and how that can affect you as a photographer and a creative in general, because I feel so much about what is shared online is about how good it is to be online, but I feel like we're missing a part of it. Dare I say, we're all going crazy about traction and being known online, and there's this sinister side to being a creative online that doesn't get spoken about as much, or if it does, it's in anecdotal sort of sidelines of a video. So this is a dedicated video to it. I will say this might upset a few people, and I'd love to discuss your personal experiences with this in the comments. So as ever, make sure you get in the comments. I will be in there myself chatting with you. So this is another one of those videos where we do quite a deep dive into this. So if anything of this video upsets you, I apologize. But the idea is to sort of lighten up the dark side. Lighten up, that sounds like something out of Star Wars, but the dark room. Yeah, the dark room. In the world of photography, the digital age has opened so many doors for us. I mean, we can put something online and we get, if we're lucky, we get people liking it, and it kind of gives us an ever expanding audience to consume our art, and it makes us kind of strive to do better. We are chasing these metrics and we kind of get this dopamine rush. The problem is, as we open it up, we are allowing criticism from people who, as the saying goes, don't accept criticism from somebody you wouldn't go to advice for. And there is this side, sort of there are people who will challenge your art, will challenge what you're doing, and not always in a nicer step way. And I think when you open your door to that many people and that many eyeballs, it's almost inevitable, as sad as it is, that you are going to get some negativity from it. And I don't just mean negative comments, but the way it makes you feel. Let's start with something that's pretty common, as much as I hate it, which is your work being stolen, because that is what it is when someone takes your work and uses it without your consent, without, like, let's just call it what it is. It's theft. Theft is a criminal act. It is theft. And people seem to not want to stand up for their art, or they don't understand, like, people, particularly people on the internet, they don't care if it's watermarked or it's off your website or it's off your Instagram. People will use it because it's on the internet. There is this wistful ignorance, almost, I would say, deliberate incompetence to the rules, that they deliberately choose not to recognize the rules. They know it. And the other thing is, other photographers do this. I have seen many a mini session that's been advertised using another photographer's work, and although they go, oh, it's not my work, it's somebody else's, the fact is they knowingly use somebody else's work. There is one photographer who I spoke to who found that their images were being used by a travel company, even though he had never been approached, he'd had no payment, and he said, to be honest, I felt absolutely disgusted because they had knowingly gone and taken this. Bearing in mind, there are many people in that company who understand the rules and cannot be ignorant to it. And then when he went on to sort of say, hey, you know, you can't do this, you need to pay me, they were rude to him, like he had done something wrong. And at one point they said, oh, but we gave you exposure. And he said, how? Nothing of mine is attributed to this. And I think in the end he was able to settle with them for a substantial amount of money. But do you know what? I'm hearing horror stories where people's work is being sold on stock photography pages against their stuff. People are having stuff showing up on random blogs, and you know, just the other day, and this is a positive reaction. A company reached out to me and said, hey, could we share this image that you've taken? You've got some of our products in it. We'll give you full credit and some kickback. And I was like, yeah, definitely have it, right? You get to choose. I get to choose. And there's another thing that happens, and this is kind of like touching on the AI. It's this idea where people take your work and manipulate it to reimagine it, such as the algorithms, the AI is now more sophisticated because they use images and they twist it. And we're seeing many photographers and creatives seeing their work regurgitated by AI, by these people doing composites to create new artwork that gives them the accolade, yet it's definitely your work. And I think that's something that's not often spoken about. Sometimes you see it on people's stories, but they're not openly talking about it as much as they could. And I feel like this is becoming more prevalent as AI becomes more and more it's accepted in the workplace and in the art space, and we're seeing people take it and they're distorting what was your intent of the image to fit their new narrative. And I feel like that has a massive impact. And when you see your work being used, but it's not attributed to you, it's attributed to another person or another entity, and yet it's definitely your work, that's got to hit pretty hard. That's got to hit pretty awfully, if you ask me. One of the things that is very prevalent in the creative industry or in any industry is your mental health. And as we know, particularly in the UK, and I'm going to touch on this a little bit, that the UK's mental health care, in my opinion, has decreased significantly. I won't go into what's happened in my personal life with a couple of my friends, but I have seen the impact of this this reduced funding, how it's impacting them. Now, there are many artists and creatives and stuff who feel this pressure to create, to put stuff online, to post the shot, and how, like, they're constantly being asked to perform. There was this whole thing where I'm an artist, but now I have to become a content creator, because in order to get your work out there so you can get the clients in, you have to make content that isn't really about your art or isn't about you. Like, people start doing silly dances, you know, all these things to try and get themselves some traction, and it makes them feel like they're having to prioritize quantity over quality, and it has a detrimental effect on you. Also, when you're constantly striving to create this stuff, you're almost striving for this validation. And with that, you get these feelings of anxiety, particularly when engagement drops, or you compare yourself to this ever growing and endless amount of competition that's out there in the world. And it's easy to lose sight of what you started to do in the first place and why you started to do this. I remember talking to, I was in a chat group on Facebook, you know, the messenger where you will get chucked in, and I was talking to a couple of friends, and one of them was sort of saying, I feel like I've lost what it is I was trying to do. Now I'm just chasing trends to try and stay relevant. And I feel like that's so true of so many of us, particularly myself. There was a time where I was just chasing relevancy because I was due to work with this brand, but they said I had to boost my social media. And I will admit my Instagram could have more work on it. But at the end of the day, I'm so busy shooting and I'm scheduling as well. But I don't want to be just putting out naff quality stuff to try and get, you know, people liking. I'll put it in when it's very sincere and honest to me. So this is a great point. If you do want to follow me on Instagram, this is the time to do it. I'll put the link somewhere around here. And I do go in my comments when people comment, but this race for visibility can lead to burnout. And I don't think that's heavily acknowledged as much. Like, you can even lose yourself. Like, suddenly I'm going to put this example out there. There used to be this huge variety of portrait photography going on, and now when I log into some of my favorite portrait photographers, I see them doing dances and quips, and I don't see much of their photography, and it's kind of disappointing because it feels like we're no longer playing a passion game but a numbers game. Is that how you can turn it? It's almost like feeding this beast that needs approval and relevance. And that's how I feel when sometimes with being a creative online, you need to be relevant to therefore be like a person of note, especially when brands are telling us, oh, you need to boost your numbers, you need to do this. I remember on TikTok there was this band saying they recorded their talk with a record label where the record label said, we'd sign you but you have too few followers. And on Instagram, like, yeah, but we've got loads of this, yeah, but we need it on Instagram. And he was like, but we sell out, yeah, but we need it on Instagram. And I'm like, oh, okay. So now suddenly they had to drive up their Instagram numbers doing all these silly things to try and get loads of people to like them. And they said it just felt really insincere. One of the dangers, and I'm going to speak about this brutally on something, I'm going to trigger this, is your privacy online. Particularly as a content creator in terms of like the YouTube and the TikTok sort of stratosphere, particularly, and I guess some of Instagram, how easy it is to overshare. It's so easy to, if you don't strip your metadata out, people can see where you've been, they can look at your geo tags, and people can get really used to you. Now, I have had in the past a stalker, and I'm going to say from experience, I didn't realize how much information they could get from me from online, which was quite worrying. I have personally had people who have shown up at my home and in my studio when I did a movie, and although they weren't really linked to that side of my business, people still showed up. It was only like 2 people, but to know that they showed up and sort of knew where I was. Now, my studio obviously is just open to the public, but my home is significantly a different place, and it was so surprising to see how quickly, in fact, now I've since moved from there, so it's a bit more, and I got some advice from some proper pros, but you know, people are inevitably going to find out potentially where you live, and that is what it is. But I feel like, I don't know if it's just because I'm a female photographer, but I do know that from other marginalized communities that I've spoken to, that they have felt like sometimes they have felt more threatened, or maybe not threatened, but they felt a little bit more, people are a bit more invasive with them. So sometimes when they share their work, they can get a lot of unsolicited comments that are not related to their work, but related to them as a person, as opposed to their work. I noticed that when I started putting my face more into my content. So for example, when I changed the logo on my Instagram out for my face, people were making comments about my face, which is fine. But then there was messages in my DM that were wholly inappropriate, remembering I'm a business. And they were, I got my share of the DP, the pictures of the eggplant, and that is a crime now in the UK. But I still get those. I still get really untoward things, and this is all being like a creative online, and it's not, it shouldn't be part of it, but it is something that does exist for this now. And if you are lucky enough to have this, I am almost envious of you. I love connecting with people who appreciate my work. I really do. It'd be wrong of me to say that I don't love it. But I've also had to block people who have crossed boundaries, and I don't mind saying that I have. And some of them are not super well known, but they are known in the community at times. And I feel like once you start putting yourself out on this platform, you are technically sometimes can become a target for people who are very unhealthy on the internet. I'm not putting the blame on me as an individual, because that would be victim blaming, but there is this point of when you put yourself out there online, it's almost expected that you are going to get trolling. And I think that is absolutely an abhorrent way to look at being online. Like, it's expected, but it does happen. And some people can really deal with it really well, and some really can't, and it can be quite hard for them. By the way, this is a great time to subscribe, and join me, because I do loads of videos, and I'm definitely making a bit more on getting these videos out for you. Thanks. Another thing that happens with being online is this loss of creative freedom or creative generation. I don't really know how to, I think creative freedom is probably the better way of saying it. We start out trying to capture images and art how we want, but slowly we're kind of manipulated subtly and not so subtly by the social media trends, by social media, by how our work is interacted with, to create more of that work, to ensure that we keep those numbers up so we can keep getting that dopamine hit. And over time, this external pressure can start to get so tight and overwhelming that we feel like we're struggling, and then we can't keep creating because we've kind of exhausted that, but we know that's what people want. I spoke to a friend, I'm going to keep her name out of it, but she said that she used to shoot really emotionally driven portraits. The problem was that people didn't connect with them the same way. And now she feels like she's doing shots that are slightly less emotional so that they look better on the Instagram, so that people interact with them more, so she can get more traction, to get more clients in. And it's this juggling, juxtaposition of getting the paid work in, but still being that creative. And unfortunately, sometimes the two don't meld well or join up well. So as creatives online, I can't say that this is a easy minefield to negotiate. There is so much in the, shall we say, the digital landscape that we have to negotiate and go through. And often that means we lose passion and we end up in places we don't want to be. But being online is very much the future of photography. I think we'd be ignorant to say that is not just the entirety of the future, but it is a massive part of it. Even when you do trade shows and you're doing chats, there is this obligation that you are expected to create content online on your social media platforms for them then to use, or at least be able to share. And that's a wonderful thing, because obviously it highlights you, but you have to then create that content and put that online. It's not so much about your photography, but more about the fact that you're going to do this talk, or this talk is happening, and then, I've done the talk and now here's more video for you. And it is part of the marketing, and it's great. And it is, but that's what I'm saying. The future of photography and creativity is definitely got a massive stronghold in digital online presence. The reality of being online isn't about finding so much your audience audience. It's about navigating this minefield of so many challenges. It's about following the algorithmic pressure, stolen work, you know, privacy issues, the constant temptation to compromise your art over content that will get you traction. And with that, we have to kind of reclaim our digital space, or try not to get lost in the digital landscape, because it is kind of chipping away our creativity. And it's the first steps, I guess, is awareness, being fully aware that when you go online, unfortunately, there isn't a license or a test exam to be online. And there are people who are not adhering to the codes of conduct of websites and social media use. They are behaving appallingly and they are rude. But also we become sort of, I don't know how to sort of addicted in some way of this dopamine hit we get from the likes, the comments, the numbers going up, people sharing our work. And I know I have and have done and still do. But you have to understand that you've got to protect yourself, protect your work, and look after your mental health. And how you negotiate this is, I think, particularly, it's taking time away from it to really focus back on your work. And I've been very much doing that lately. I've been posting a lot less to my Instagram and feeling like when I am posting, it's posting with purpose and not because the algorithm says I've got to post 3 times a week and do a reel a day or whatever it was this month that we have to do. The internet is a mass and a vast, all-consuming environment, but your creativity is yours, and it's yours alone. And so you don't need to dump it all into the online world immediately, and you can slowly drip feed it in, and you can protect some of it from you don't have to put it all online. You also don't have to twist your creativity to fit the narrative of the social media trends that month, because what happens is you're kind of saying I'm creative but only in the confines of what is popular right now. That's all I'm going to do. And I don't think that gives your work longevity. You become trend hopping, and most of the time when you jump on a trend, you're already behind the trend. You are in the wake of the trend. The trend is gone and past you, and you're trying to play catch up, which can have a detrimental effect on you. I would love to know your thoughts on this and how you feel about being a creative online, how it's affected you. These are kind of some interesting talking points. I'm playing devil's advocate in a lot of this, but it's interesting to talk about this because I have spoken to quite a few photographers who said they have openly struggled with it. They have found themselves becoming more in a depressive mood when they're not getting the traction they like, whereas before they didn't care, but now they care because people seem to care more about it. I was always told the internet is not a real place, but the internet can do some real damage, both because there is people who are incredibly awful on the internet, and there are ways in which you become almost addicted to the dopamine hit the likes and everything give you. It's been great, and I'll see you all in the next video.